So this is a video about how to train your dog to walk on leash without pulling and to walk calmly. There's kind of like two parts to this. First of all, we just have loose leash walking where your dog walks pretty much anywhere as long as the leash is loose and not tight. This is something you can achieve by following this protocol where if your dog pulls on leash, you just gently stop so your dog cannot move forward. And then there's a couple things you can do after that. One is to encourage your dog to come back. In the early parts of training, it pays off to give your dog a treat reward or another type of reward for that behavior because that will strengthen your dog coming back naturally. And then that makes the leash loose. And then the second part is over time, your dog will just start to come back after the leash is tight, and then you don't need to reward that or not as often anyway. In addition to that, simply giving your dog treat rewards for walking by your side will reinforce or increase the amount of time your dog does that. There's kind of like specific ways to work on that as well, which we'll get into more a little bit later. But as far as just the overall goal, the more you reward or reinforce your dog for walking without pulling or for walking by your side, the more your dog will do that behavior. And so that's what we're looking for because it will make walks so much easier. The dog will start to pull less. I always recommend walking dogs on a leash attached to a harness or off leash if it's appropriate and safe to do so. But if you're using a leash, make sure it's attached to a harness which distributes the pressure weight from the leash to the dog's body instead of directly to the dog's neck. If you do have some type of collar, it puts that pressure on the dog's neck and can end up injuring their windpipe or their trachea, in addition to some other anatomical parts as well. So once you have the leash attached to a harness, whenever you do stop and the dog isn't able to move forward, it shouldn't cause any pain to the dog or injure the dog. The only way it really does is if you jerk the leash harshly or pull pretty hard back, straight back from the dog, and sometimes the ring might still bump the dog's neck, if that makes sense. So that's something to be careful about. You don't want to do that, even if you do use a harness. In the early parts of training, this process might seem very slow. It might seem like your dog's not responding very quickly or as much as you want him or her to do so, but that's normal. Just continue making sure you reward the desirable behavior and you gently stop to remove the dog's ability to move forward whenever the dog is pulling. And that will lead to the longer term results and make the walk so much easier for you. Now, how we're going to train your dog to heel or walk by your side. Basically, that term comes from a dog walking next to a person's heel of their foot. What we're going to do is build this behavior up in very gradual steps. So rewarding or reinforcing the dog for walking like 2 steps by your side, then 3 steps, then 4, and kind of keep going until we build up to longer amounts of time, such as like 30 steps forward. The reason we do this is dogs do not inherently understand how to do behaviors for longer amounts of time. So if we were just assuming we said heel and our dog would walk by our side for 100 steps, they won't do that. That's not how it works. And that's normal. So what we do is we help dogs get a lot of the behaviors correct at lower levels of difficulty, like a few steps forward at a time. And then once we get to greater distances or more steps, it becomes easier for the dog. We also, once we get to like, let's say about like 10 steps walking by our side, we want to mix in some easier repetitions so it doesn't always get harder each specific trial or repetition. So for example, we might reward a dog for walking by our side for 10 steps, then 12, then 3, then 4, then 13, then 6, and we would want this to be in as random a pattern as possible, so we don't always want it like hard, easy, if that makes sense. And this is just how dogs learn, so it's something good trainers get used to doing really fluently, and the process becomes much easier over time. Then once we can predict our dog will do the behavior, we can add a cue or signal for the dog to perform the behavior when we ask for it. So usually for this specific behavior, we will use a verbal cue. I say let's go, but it's also common to use heel. So we would, this video we're showing Carly, the dog. So I would say the dog's name and then give the cue. So for example, it'd be like, Carly, let's go. I would, she would do the behavior, then I would be able to reward the behavior. And once you give the reward or mark the behavior correct by praise or a clicker or saying yes, that lets the dog know that behavior was achieved, they got it correct, the reward is coming, and then they're free to move again. So if we wanted the dog to continue healing again after that, we would have to give another cue or signal. This is another part where you're going to have to get plenty of repetitions of success, and you'll also vary the number of steps forward. So not every single cue will mean the same thing, like heel for exactly 10 steps, but it could be heel for whatever the number of steps is you've achieved, and you'll still kind of vary it from time to time. Other factors that affect this include distractions in the environment or the distance you are to a certain thing. So if you were trying to work on passing another dog and you ask your dog to heel past the dog, technically there's some distance you are from the dog. If you're closer to the dog, it's harder on your dog. If you're farther away, it should be an easier repetition. And then also however many steps your dog has to move forward to heel past the other dog is added to that level of difficulty as well. So a shorter distance would be, or shorter number of steps would be easier on your dog. You can also teach your dog other behaviors to use on walks. A really useful one is a recall, which is a coming when called behavior. So you'd simply teach that in a low distraction area first, like inside your home with not much going on, and then start to practice it well out on walks. In this case, you would give the dog's name, your cue, and reward the behavior. It really helps to reward this behavior with plenty of treats or higher value treats, which are usually like fresh meat treats or cheese or something like that. One of your dog's favorite treats, for example. And so that an example of that would be like, Carly, here, she comes over, good dog, or yes, and here's some treats. And then she's free to move again. And so that's a behavior you can use, especially if you use a longer leash. It's nice to be able to get your dog to come back to you whenever needed. Another behavior you can teach is leave it, which can kind of be defined however you want it to be, but usually how I'll teach it is just to mean like your dog will look away, like leave an item and not touch it, or check in with you and like kind of make eye contact with you as opposed to like going towards something else. Drop it will teach, that's another behavior that's good, but that means let go of an object that the dog has picked up. So that is usually like a separate cue from leave it for most trainers. You can also teach a stay where the dog will sit or lie down or stand and then stay for whatever amount of time you've trained, and then you can release your dog to move again afterwards. It's also helpful to improve your skills as the leash handler or trainer of your dog. And some of the things you can use while you're out on walks is becoming aware of your surroundings. It helps to check behind you, especially if you're in an area where other people and dogs kind of like come up on you quickly, children on bikes or even adults on bikes. It's good to be aware that they're about to zip by you, and then you can take appropriate action and help your dog heel past them or move off the trail to allow more room for other people. If you have any questions on this behavior and training topic, let me know in the comments section. I hope this video was helpful. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day.